Welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving deep into a seriously fascinating excerpt from the Mahabharata. We're going to explore the sheer unbelievable scale of ancient Vedic sacrifices and really unpack the shocking and sometimes totally upside-down power dynamics between mortals and gods. Honestly, if you think you know how humans and deities interact in mythology, well, prepare to have your expectations completely flipped. Because it brings up this huge, intriguing question. Can mortal wealth actually buy divine power? What we're looking at here is a highly transactional relationship between humanity and the heavens. It's basically a system where extreme physical wealth was literally used as a currency for divine favor. And we're going to see exactly how that worked by looking at the staggering world-altering offerings of ancient kings.
Which leads us right into Section 1, the ultimate golden sacrifice. So the sage Lomasa recounts history for us, explaining how kings like Amurtarayasa pleased Indra by offering massive amounts of sacred Soma juice. And this totally brilliantly illustrates the extreme opulence we're talking about. Look, in normal sacrificial rites of the time, the tools were uniformly made of everyday materials, right? Timber, wood, earth. But King Amurtarayasa, he basically said no thanks to all that and replaced everything with pure, shining, solid gold. This wasn't just a minor upgrade. The wealth was so spectacular that the text literally notes the gods themselves pitched in to help erect these golden sacrificial stakes. I mean, imagine that.
Now, as we look closer, you'll notice an intense repetition of a specific number in these grand rituals. The number 7. It's a number absolutely loaded with mythological significance across the board, and King Amurtarayasa took it to an absolute extreme.
Check this out. This wasn't just a single, one-off opulent event. Amurtarayasa performed 7 magnificent horse sacrifices. And he didn't even reuse his golden tools. He completely outfitted each and every sacrifice with 7 sets of golden stakes, placing exactly 7 golden rings fastened at the top of each one. Even the absolute smallest functional items, we're talking 7 sets of golden pots, ladles, utensils, and spoons. The sheer volume of precious metal being utilized for a single religious rite is, well, it's practically unimaginable.
But hey, if you thought Amurtarayasa was wealthy, King Gaya took this to an even more absurd scale. The texts describe his offerings with this really beautiful metaphor. Quote, "As the sand grains of the earth, or as the stars in the sky, or as the raindrops when it raineth, cannot be counted by anyone, so the wealth Gaya gave away was incapable of being counted by figures. He paid his priests gratuities so unbelievably massive that they defied all mathematical calculation. It's just a fantastic way to emphasize a level of wealth that entirely transcends human comprehension." So what did all this wealth actually do? Well, King Gaya gifted golden images of the goddess of speech, images that, mind you, were actually crafted by the god's own sculptor, to priests who flooded in from all cardinal directions just to receive a piece of this untold wealth. Get this, he erected so many sacrificial piles that there was barely any open space left on the surface of the earth. And you know what? The transaction worked. By essentially covering the earth in sacrifices and buying the favor of the priests, King Gaya successfully purchased his ticket, attaining the highly coveted celestial regions of Indra.
Okay, let's move on to Section 2, Sacred Rivers and Cleansed Sins.
We're shifting gears now from utilizing massive, unquantifiable wealth to achieving spiritual purification through physical pilgrimage. The sage Lomasa is laying out a very specific 3-step sacred itinerary for Yudhishthira and his brothers. He essentially promises that simply walking this physical path across the landscape will lead them to the exact same celestial regions inhabited by those vastly wealthy kings and gods. It's like a map to heaven. First, you bathe in the Payosini River. Then, journey to the Hill of Sapphires. And finally, plunge your body into the great Narmada River.
Just look at the power of that very first step. Lomasa guarantees that simply bathing in the waters of the Payosini River acts as the ultimate spiritual reset button. It completely, 100%, washes away all accumulated sins. And after doing this, Yudhishthira and his brothers proceed to distribute gifts to thousands of brahmanas, acting as newly purified conduits of generosity.
But here's the catch. It's not just about where you are, it's about when you are. Timing is literally everything in these epics. Lomasa makes sure to point out that this specific pilgrimage is taking place precisely at the junction between the Treta and the Kali ages. So this isn't just, a random Tuesday. It's a highly auspicious cosmic window of time, making it the absolute perfect moment for a person to completely rid themselves of all their sins.
And that brings us to Section 3, and oh man, this is my favorite part. A mortal paralyzes a god.
The dynamic here completely shifts. We go from humans desperately appeasing the gods to a mortal seizing absolute, terrifying power over the divine. To set the scene for this climax, Lomasa points out a sacred spot where King Saryati held a sacrifice. Now, this sacrifice was so incredibly powerful, so compelling, that Indra didn't just accept it from afar. No, he actually manifested in a physical, visible form to drink the Soma juice in person, and he brought along 2 celestial physicians.
But then, a massive, shocking twist in the cosmic hierarchy. A mortal saint named Chyavana, the son of Brigu, gets incredibly angry at the great Indra. Now, Chyavana isn't insanely rich like King Gaya. Instead, he wields the immense spiritual power of severe austerities. And using that power in a blinding fit of rage, this mortal saint literally paralyzes the mighty king of the gods, right there on the spot. And in the aftermath of this unbelievable flex of power, Chyavana claims the Princess Sukanya as his wife.
When Yudhishthira hears this story, he reacts exactly how we are reacting right now. He is utterly floored. He immediately asks Lomasa, wait, how could this possibly happen? How was the mighty Indra, this legendary god, possessing the 6 attributes, the fierce chastiser of the demon Paka, how could he physically be paralyzed by a mere human saint? I mean, it completely shatters the very rules of the universe they thought they understood.
And furthermore, Yudhishthira desperately wants to know the context here. Like, what on earth could have provoked such terrifying, blinding wrath from Chyavana in the first place? What did the king of the gods actually do to make a mortal saint snap and just freeze him in his tracks?
Which honestly leaves us on a massive cliffhanger. Yudhishthira's final burning question to Lomasa is about those 2 celestial physicians who came down with Indra. He asks, how were they suddenly elevated to the exalted rank of Soma-drinkers? We've seen how unimaginable wealth buys a ticket to heaven, how rivers literally wash away sins, and how intense ascetic power can paralyze gods. But what's the full story behind Chyavana's wrath and the promotion of these physicians? The text leaves Yudhishthira and all of us totally begging for the rest of this epic mystery. So, what do you think pushed a mortal to overthrow the king of the gods? Keep that question in the back of your mind as you continue exploring these absolutely incredible ancient texts.